Hello and welcome to this webinar. Today we're going to be talking about getting started with your very first online course. Sometimes it's important to revisit the fundamentals, and I'm going to condense a lot of experience and for myself and also working with a lot of course creators and membership site creators into what it really takes to launch your first course and get it off the ground successfully, without eating your lunch for, time and money. Before I really dive in, Kathy, can you just confirm for me that I am in fact sharing my screen, the slides? Cool. All right. Well, I'm Chris Badgett, the co-founder of Your LMS, which is a WordPress-based system for creating, selling, and protecting engaging online courses and memberships. So, in this presentation, we're going to start with the fundamental building block of online education, which is your first online course. There's all kinds of business models people can get into. They can do multiple courses, or they can do these memberships that include bundles of courses and other benefits and coaching and community. We're going to get into all that, but I think it's important to just take a step back and recognize the importance of building your first online course and how to get through that process. Because unfortunately, a lot of people don't make it through the gate. I don't have the exact statistics, but I know a lot of people try to create a course project and launch it and get it going and get that flywheel, that momentum spinning. But they often hit lots of roadblocks along the way. So my hope for you with this presentation is, my goal is for this to be one of the most valuable presentations you've ever heard, and that if you take notes on some of the insights, what I mean by one of the most valuable is I'm trying to save you a lot of pain and suffering and also accelerate the path to success. So there's a bunch of little ideas in here that my goal is that, if you take those, put them into action, put them into habit, rewire your thinking around certain things related to online courses, that you can find just success much easier and faster. So this presentation is going from that point where you have a expertise in a course idea, and you're going to your successful course website launch. There's a lot that happens before you have your course idea, and also in terms of scaling after the launch. And we're going to talk about that stuff a little bit, but mostly I'm imagining you have an idea for a course that you're really cementing and surrounding yourself on, and you just want to be able to successfully get that project launched. So the format for this call is, I'm going to do this presentation. It's probably going to take approximately 40 minutes to an hour, and then we're going to have an opportunity for Q&A. And I love the Q&A section. You know me, I'm all about feedback loops and helping you, and you guys are going to have insights or questions based on this call, and I'm really looking forward to that part. So I hope you stick around for the Q&A, because there's always lots of great questions on these webinars. This is a picture of me drinking out of a coconut. It's called Pipa Fria. I was in Costa Rica actually filming a organic gardening course. It was a 2-week permaculture design course. This is one of my personal online course projects. So this picture was taken back in 2012 when I set off to Costa Rica. I'd already been building courses in this niche with other experts. I found one of the most famous people in the world on this topic, and set up did a course project with them, partnership, where I brought my digital marketing and course design, digital design skills to this particular leader's expertise. And we rented a car, and we were just living in a at this time, a house on the beach in Nosara, Costa Rica, and I had to drive up into the mountains. My wife, Sam, driving, and we drove up with our two little girls at the time. I actually hired a videographer to fly down and actually film it. So this is me going up at the end of the 2 weeks to hang out on site, check in with the videographer, get my hard drive of video footage, and build relationship and finalize everything with the expert who was doing a 2-week live workshop with about 40 students. So I love course creation. It's something I'm super passionate about. I've been around it for almost a decade. And so a lot of the pictures in here, I actually, instead of grabbing stock photography, I just went into the file of, some images I have of my course creation journey and my development as an entrepreneur, just to make it a little bit more personal. So I'm going to share with you some stories and some things that happened to me along the way, as these pictures will remind me. So this is an interactive webinar. Please ask questions as we go. There's a Q&A feature here in Zoom, question and answer. You can click on that. We'll go there first once we get into the Q&A, and I'll address those questions. You can also raise your hand in Zoom, and that's an opportunity. So maybe type it in, talking. If anybody, once we get to the Q&A section, wants to have a live conversation, I'd be honored to. So that's an option. You can also post in the chat if you like, but I'm going to go to the Q&A first. It's a little more organized and easier for me to manage on my side. Also, as I'm talking, Kathy from our team is going to be dropping in some links to various things that we're talking about. If you want to follow those, check out what we're talking about, and also keep in mind, if we are posting links in the chat, that's not saved forever. So if you see anything in there that you want to hang on to, be sure to open up a notepad or on your computer or another browser tab or whatever, so that you can have those links to investigate after the call. So that's really it for this orientation. I just want to say that I'm super excited for this one, and the way we see Lift Your LMS is our success is your success. So whatever it takes for you to be successful as a course creator, to get that milestone of launching your course, getting paying customers, and achieving that freedom, that feeling of freedom, just like me with my little coconut here, about living a life of creative expression and working in a niche and industry that I'm passionate about. That's the goal for all this. So I hope you get a lot of gems from this presentation. So please take notes. There's a lot of different stages that the course creation process goes through. I describe it as the many hats that education entrepreneurs have to wear, or they have to build a team to be able to execute effectively. And this is a classic, bootstrapped entrepreneur, startup problem where I know I need to wear all these hats. I'm only good at a few of them, and I don't have the budget to hire anybody. In a lot of cases, that's the case. Like creating something out of nothing, this is what the entrepreneur does. And you can do that with outside money, investment or whatever, or you can do it from scratch. So this presentation is really designed for the bootstrapped entrepreneur who doesn't necessarily have a lot of excess capital. So I'm trying to get to the main nuggets to help you launch successfully with limited resources and limited team size. So the 5 hats that people wear, and I'd recommend writing this down, is you have to be an expert, you have to be a instructional designer, you have to be a community builder, you have to be a technologist, and you have to be an entrepreneur. So again, those are expert, instructional designer, community builder, technologist, and entrepreneur. So that's a tall order. This is part of the reason a lot of online course or membership site projects fail is it's very hard to be 5 people at once, especially if you're doing it completely by yourself. So this first piece here, this is about getting your mind right. This is really about stepping into the role of the expert. We're putting our expert hat on. We haven't made any courses. We have our course idea. So these are the big things for getting your mind right in the expert industry. This is inner game stuff. This is stuff that happens on the inside of the human being. So one of the things I've noticed is that, especially now as online education is going mainstream and, competition is increasing, it's no longer like there's all this like low hanging fruit, easy wins, put something up and whatever. Like, you really need to do a good job with your course, your membership, for it to really work. So the inner game thing, the mindset that I encourage you to wrap your head around is to make a commitment to creating a learning experience, which we might call a course or a membership, that is results focused. I call this results-based learning versus what's very common these days, which is edutainment, the combination of education and entertainment. Like YouTube, there's a lot of edutainment. You might learn how to do some things, but it's also entertaining. And that's fine, but if that content is not, and I'm a big fan, by the way, of being entertaining when you teach. That's why I have this picture of me in Nepal, in the Himalaya. I'm sitting with a sadhu in Kathmandu. These entertainment is cool, but at the end of the day, we are all strapped for time, energy, and resources. So it's very important, as our attention is so fractured, that we really help people get results and not just, suggestions or good premium content. So focusing on results is what people really want. People don't buy online courses, they buy a result. In the same way that people don't really buy books, they're buying the result of this, especially in the nonfiction category, that this book is offering. Whereas fiction, that's about entertainment. But the best books literally change our life. And we see the world in a completely new way and are able to operate in it in a more evolved way, getting better results. Another analogy I like to use is we don't really buy or rent houses. We're actually looking for like a container to live our lives and have these experiences, and security. We're buying security and a place for family, a place for friends to hang out. This is what we actually want. The house is important, but it's not really the result that we're seeking from. And, in some ways, we see a lot of pressure on this in just popular culture and in the media in terms of college education. There's unemployment issues, expensive college degrees where people can't necessarily get the result, i.e. the well-paying job or the lifestyle that they imagined that they were going to get through the education. Not always the case, but that's an example where for some people there's a disconnect between the learning and the result that they thought they were going to get. So results-based learning is something that I would encourage you to look at very closely. And one final thought on that, I often describe 4 or 5 ways of structuring a course or course models. One of them is called the process. The other is called the behavior change. There's one called the resource course. There's another one called a case study course. And the final one is like a hybrid model that combines some or all of those things. The most dangerous course, in my opinion, or membership, is what I call the resource course. This is where an expert packs a bunch of great knowledge and they're very knowledgeable in this industry and they make content, but it's not necessarily organized in such a way that it delivers, a great result. It's like a great library, but unlike the process or the behavior change course, which fundamentally require a result to be achieved, it may be more of a suggestion than a solution. So the resource course is very dangerous. I see a lot out there, and it's very easy for the expert to fall in that trap of creating some kind of memoir of experience into a giant resource library that may not be as effective at getting results for learners as it could be. So the other inner game thing is when you step into the role as a leader and an expert, you still need to be supported yourself. And oftentimes education entrepreneurs are not necessarily surrounded by other education entrepreneurs IRL in their real life. I just find that course creators, membership folks are often very spread out and they're all over the world and they're not necessarily in communities of other in-person communities. So join other people doing similar things, like the community of people on this webinar is a great example, like the Lift Your if you're not in that. If you listen to our podcast, LMS Cast, one of the goals of that whole project is to create a space for these community of like-minded individuals to share information and knowledge and wisdom and experience around creating courses and membership sites and creating change, i.e. results, in their learning communities, because we can learn from each other. So having that support community is very important to the inner game of feeling supported. The other thing is a commitment to leadership. It takes to really become an expert, to get up on the soapbox and teach something. It involves leadership. There's these sayings about fear of failure and fear of success, which I used to kind of not believe in, but now I see it all the time, so I do believe in it. It really takes an extra level of responsibility and commitment to take on a lead role in an industry. Some of the inner game or dark side of that is the fear of success. It's the failure to launch due to perfectionism. It's the problem of thinking that you need to be a level 10 to help a level 2 in your niche when you really only need to be a level 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. So that's like the dark side of not committing to leadership and just not thinking four-dimensionally through time, in that you can help people that maybe only just like if you're teaching a process or a behavior change, the people you help may only be like 1 month behind you in terms of learning and figuring this all out. That's still leadership. The other thing to do is to make a commitment to the leadership that you require from your students. So if you're going to offer results, you need to teach it in a way that and be okay with your students taking leadership, which is somewhat counterintuitive because not always is education structured in a way that the student is necessarily leading and taking information and moving directly into action. Sometimes it's more just like a collection of good ideas and good content that then you just check for rote memorization. That's not necessarily empowering a student to lead. And the final thing in the inner game is, in this world of so much competing for our attention in our physical life and our online life, media, technology, everything, it's really important. This is the other big thing that derails people, failure to launch, is a lack of commitment to minimalism or simplicity. I'm not saying you have to become a minimalist and not, geek out about technology or your course content or anything, but just what I'm saying is, if we work backwards from the results-based learning, the goal, it's a lot easier to move forward if we take a minimal or simplicity approach. So if I am teaching somebody a like a behavior change course about, let's say the course is about how to quit smoking, I'm going to teach that in such a way that I don't need to necessarily have 100 lessons and all kinds of research into everything. I'm trying to find the fewest steps possible to teach somebody and empower somebody to take leadership and follow a proven process to quit smoking in as few steps as possible. That's just one example. So it's very easy to kind of get overwhelmed with too much information or too many tips or too much supporting resources to, you know, bog down into entropy. So minimalism and simplicity is very helpful. The next thing is the expert outer game, or the environment. So this is a picture from, this is actually the home office I'm broadcasting to you from right now. Yes, I have a hammock in my office, and I try to take a nap after lunch every day. And I think writing a book is hard. You know, I've struggled with that myself. I've had book projects that are, you know, have not succeeded. I have some that have. But when you take on a publisher's mindset and a creator's mindset, you could call it artistic, or you could look at it as a more, you know, engineering technical function. Either way, you have to have an environment that supports you. And this is where like minimalism comes in handy. So what is a minimum environment that you need to create your course? If you're going to create videos, you need to have a quiet place to record your video or your audio. It could be, and you might, for some people, that's really hard to come up with. It's important to design and protect your creation, your creativity capacity, and the ability to do that. You have to build the environment to be able to do that, whether that's, you know, renting an office at a co-working space, or, you know, finding that room in your house when other people are asleep or away, or going all in like I have with like literally creating my own home office in the yard where I can geek out and it's very easy to get to and develop content in. So the environment's important. Habits are very important. So, you know, if you've ever tried to write a book before, or blog on a regular basis, or do some kind of social media on a regular basis, habits are the lifeblood of all that stuff. Otherwise, it's always very hard. So that's, you know, there's techniques like time blocking on your calendar, you know, doing Gantt charts and scheduling, like different habits of when things to do things, whether that's creating content or doing, you know, if your course includes coaching and stuff like that. But you need to have habits that support you. Otherwise, that's the other reason a lot of these projects kind of blow up and failure to launch is habits were never installed to make the space for creating the actual learning content, or, you know, doing the technology implementation. You have to develop habits around that stuff. Equipment is also very important. And this is a perfect example where minimalism really comes in handy. I'm always trying to level up online course production quality and stuff like that. Like I mentioned, I hired a videographer to come down and professionally shoot that 2-week program, because I know they would be a much better videographer than me. But anyways, the very first version, sometimes people get hung up on having the equipment be perfect. Yes, production quality is good, but having failure to launch because you didn't use the equipment you already had to at least get started with version 1 is not good, in my opinion. So the equipment can be very basic. It can be a laptop with a camera on it and, you know, some earbuds like I'm wearing right now, like the Apple earbuds that have a decent microphone on it, and, you know, potentially a smartphone. And pretty much that gives you the basics. Or if you're, if your courses are more out in the field, like a yoga course or something like that, maybe you use a different kind of camera. But, the audio and the sound is important for courses. But there's a whole rabbit hole of technology that you can get in. I think you should always be improving it. But failure to launch because of obsession with equipment is, that's one of the things that stops a lot of people, or just makes things take entirely too long. Because what's the point of doing a launch, 2 years late because you got obsessed with production quality, only to find out that you kind of missed your market, or your content is when you start getting feedback from people and you realize you need to reshoot a bunch of videos that didn't quite work the way you thought they would in the learning journey and stuff like that. It's better to start and then improve as you go. The next thing is community building. So a lot of people do this backwards. I learned this way of thinking about this from a popular business mentor of mine in the WordPress space named Chris Lemma. He says that, people often do it backwards with membership sites. And they go get the technology, like lift your LMS, and then they go try to build the course content, and then they go try to find a community to sell it all to. And Chris argues that that is the opposite way to do things. And unfortunately, I see this happen a lot, where people buy the tools and they don't even have their course idea yet, or any content at all, and an email list or social media following of 0. It can be done that way, but if you put the community building, at least get the flywheel and the momentum spinning on the front end, I call that tribal formation. This is an open community. This isn't a paid community. It might be private, but it's an open community built around your expertise. So this is the community builder skill set. And at a minimum, I recommend that's an email list, and that is some kind of social media group. And then the third thing, and I'm going to go through all this in more detail, is early stage results. So before you have even created the course or the membership, it's a much easier task to come up with something smaller that helps give people a reason to form a community around you, or your concept, or your niche. So help people get early stage results. It could be some kind of like self-assessment. It could be some kind of checklist. It could be identifying a niche that doesn't really exist in the social consciousness yet. I'll go into that in more detail, but let me back up and go to email. When it comes time to launch your course later, you do not need a giant email list, but it sure would be nice if you had been building that email list from the very beginning. So I'm going to give you 2 or 3 example email list services that you can start with. MailChimp is free up to a certain point. You don't even have to like host the opt-in form on your website or anything. They give you one that you can use. That could be the beginning of your email list. You can always move to a fancier tool later, but MailChimp is a great place to start. I forget what their free, how their free plan works, and some of the features they offer are in the paid plans only, but just building a basic opt-in and email list is free with the lower plan of MailChimp. Also, another one that has been growing a lot lately with a nice free front-end plan is called MailerLite. I believe that's free to 2,000 people. You have to check with these companies because they're often changing their pricing and stuff like that, or their rules. Or you could start with something like I use. My personal favorite right now is ActiveCampaign. And I forget what their first plan is. It's not free, but it's something under $20 a month for like 1,000 people. It's a great place to start if you can make that kind of investment, but there's a lot of free options out there. But you have to give people a reason to give you their email address. You have to build trust. You have to, make it clear why your tribe, why your community, why you're a leader in this space are worth, why is it worth their time to give you their email address? This goes back to the early stage results part of community building. So early stage results could just be 1 to 5 blog posts around something in your niche that helps people. These could be YouTube videos that are helpful in your niche. These could be, what we call in the marketing world lead magnets, like checklists, a little mini ebook. What else do people do? These like assessment tools. It could be like a 15-minute free consultation with you or something like that. There's all kinds of things you can do to add value for free and give people a reason to join your community, i.e. join your email list. And also it's important to keep up with them over time, let them know what you're doing. And this is what leadership is all about. You have to communicate what's going on. What leaders do is they navigate the future. And oftentimes that future is a brighter vision that, helps people get out of pain or discover an opportunity. So, and then this is the other piece is the social media community. So I recommend doing email and then social. So that could be a Facebook group. Like I have a screenshot here of the online course creators membership site, entrepreneurs, and Lift Your LMS VIP's Facebook group. I took this screenshot the other day. There's currently just 2,830 people on there. I remember when I started this Facebook group and there was one person in there. And for a long time, there wasn't much going on here, but I had to plant that seed. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is today. So getting a Facebook group, getting a LinkedIn group, creating a hashtag on Instagram, creating a Snapchat following, whatever it is for you that leverages the power of social media and the distribution that's possible in there, start building that from day one. Now, this is not your paid community. This is just, your tribes that you are adding value to. You're giving them early stage results through some kind of results-based learning. Even this webinar that you're on right now is an example of early stage results. This is a free webinar that I'm leading where I'm adding value and helping you, guide you, and lay out the vision for how to create your course project and get your first one launched. So this is an example of me right here in front of you, community building. But anyway, so webinars is another strategy. You could do in exchange for your email address, you can come to a free webinar where I help with something. It could be something like a slide presentation like we're doing right now. So onwards from community building, this is, as I mentioned earlier in this webinar before we started recording, I spent a lot of time in Alaska. I used to run sled dogs up there, and I spent a lot of time training animals and leading a tour business on a glacier that you could only get to by helicopter, where we take people on sled dog rides in the Juneau ice field. This is me launching out on a 200-mile sled dog race. And the reason I bring this up is I am going to use training dogs as an example. I've always wanted, by the way, to create a sled dog training course, so I could teach people how to, train dogs to, all positive, ways to train dogs to pull, love it, enjoy it, go crazy for it, either in small teams or single. You can train like a single dog to pull you on a skateboard or your bicycle. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a sled dog. I mean, they do need to have a certain build, but I've seen, border collies, Labradors, even like poodles and other animals pull if they're, trained how to do it and enjoy it and love it. But anyways, if I was going to create a train your own sled dog course, it's important to map learning results to the real world. So if I were to just create a bunch of, like, there's a great dog training book called Don't Shoot the Dog. Okay, it's a classic in dog training circles about positive reinforcement and working with difficult animals. But it's a book. It has a lot of good ideas, but that's what a lot of courses are. Is they are good ideas that, it's kind of like a resource or catalog of good ideas, but it's not really guiding you through a process or literally transforming or changing you into a better trainer and as effectively as it could. So when you make a commitment to results-based curriculum design and keep it as simple as possible to achieve the desired results, that's what it's all about. And mapping into the real world, because what people don't want, I'm going to say it again because I said it earlier in this call, people don't want to buy your course or your membership or your consulting service or your coaching program or your online community. They're looking for some kind of result that is a byproduct of those things. So there's in instructional design, there's a lot of talk about what's the learning objective. What I'm saying to you is let's focus on the results objective. So let's map learning to the real world. If I'm going to create a dog training course, it's not just going to be content and information about what works in general. There's going to be like a process and a program, and I'm going to be asking you to put the course down, close the laptop, and go do stuff, because we're going to map this information to the real world. That's the key. A lot of course creators miss that. The other thing is, well, before I get into the next thing, I just want to say this is what what's coming into the Infinity Bundle next, which is assignments. So Your LMS has a lot of great tools for content and assessing learning through quizzing and things like that to make sure you understood and remember the content. But assignments, which is coming next, is all about close the computer and go do this stuff, or do this stuff on a computer to prove that you did it in the real world. That's what assignments are all about. So an online course is not just a chapterized video version of a book. It can be that, but get your people moving and taking action outside of being a passive receptacle for content. That's results-based curriculum design. Next is coaching and community design. This is why we have two products. One's called Private Areas, which is good for creating coaching, basically. So that's private content per course, per student, or per member, per membership. And so this is where, like, if you do a coaching call, or you have an upsell to your course that includes coaching, you can, post that replay video to that particular student's private post. And then you guys can have a private conversation around that piece of content. And we have articles on our blog about, all kinds of different ways. And there's whole webinars on doing coaching with Private Areas and how that works and how you can benefit. But the important thing here is learning often includes feedback, coaching. And here I am running this sled dog race. And I learned under Iditarod sled dog musher, who actually just finished 10th in the Iditarod this year. It's a 1,000-mile sled dog race across Alaska. I learned a lot from him. You know, there was some coaching there. And yes, I learned a lot from the dogs and my experiences out on the trail and, you know, trial and error and all that kind of stuff. But coaching in the offline world is an important part of learning. So if you want to really focus on the results, you might want to consider adding a coaching component, because your students are not necessarily all the same or going to have the same struggles or see the world in the same way. So coaching is very helpful. And it can be an upsell. And also one of the things that people discover sometimes if they have coaching as a part of things is that, yeah, it takes more of their time, but also their students are way more likely to get results, stay engaged, not refund. And you also need a lot fewer students because they're getting such great results. You know, you charge more for that. It's not just a chapterized video version of a textbook. So the next step is community design. Community design, we have a product called Social Learning, which creates a Facebook-like timeline on your website so that students are no longer just isolated and alone with a video-based chapterized version of your textbook. There's actually a community here where students can interact with each other, learn from each other, see who's accomplishing what, have public conversations with each other. Community is a part of learning here. Like when I was learning how to run sled dogs, I was around other people learning how to run sled dogs. And I was also around other, you know, kind of coaches or people who had a lot more experience than me. So if you're going to create a results-based learning program, think about designing community. What does that look like? I mean, is that like a Facebook group? Or you're going to use the Your LMS social learning add-on. There's a tool in WordPress called BuddyPress. There's a popular separate forum software called Discourse. But don't neglect the community, because this is about letting your students lead. It's about letting them help each other. And it's about creating a learning experience, not just premium content. So think consciously about community design. And one of the great things, if we go back to this picture of the Your LMS Facebook group, a lot of people in this community help each other. You know, so that's great when that happens, when the community really starts to take on a life of its own. And just to be clear though, I'm talking about as a community builder, yes, it's the same skill set, but I'm a big fan of two communities. So there's the general, like your tribe, your followers, the people who are interested in you. And then there's like that inner circle community of people that they've bought your program, or if you have a free course, which is fine, they're inside the program. So this is like, they're both important, but when you design your course, I'm talking, there's also this layer, this inner circle. That's what I'm talking about here. It's very important, and it can dramatically help students stay motivated, get results, learn from each other. And you as a leader have to think consciously about how and what that's going to look like. The other thing is just when you design your course, moving from a passive to an active strategy. So I'm only going to say it one more time. If I do, give me a hard time. If I say it again, give me a hard time in the chat. But a video-based chapterized version of a textbook as an online course is a passive strategy. There's nothing wrong with that, and that kind of stuff can be helpful and in some ways a lot more effective for certain types of learners than a traditional, book or textbook. But if you make a commitment to having an active strategy where there's coaching, there's community, you're asking people to close the laptop, or turn off the smartphone and go do something. That now we're moving from passive to active. So online education is not about just entertainment and edutainment. And that's really the mindset shift we talked about beginning, moving into an active strategy. The next, we're on the fourth hat here, which is the technologist hat, is to, once you've created all this, you've really stepped into your role as an expert, number one. Number two, you have embraced community building. Number three, you've made a commitment to creating a results-based learning curriculum. And now it's time to wrap it in technology. KISS, keep it super simple. This is where a lot of people get lost, failure to launch, or imagine everything I've talked about. Imagine you were starting here with just buying LMS or membership site online course software. Think about how disadvantaged you would be if you hadn't done a lot of the work I've mentioned previously. But imagine that you have stepped into your role as an expert teacher leader. You do have, you've built some community, even if it's small. There's like, you have some people on your email list or some people in your Facebook group following you on Instagram, YouTube, or whatever. And and you've actually designed and created, the course content and the strategy around coaching, community, assignments, engagement, those kinds of things. Now it's technology time. And remember, minimalism and simplicity. One of the reasons that we created Your LMS from day one is people create what I call the software Frankenstein, where they string together like a membership tool over here, e-commerce tool over here, badge system over here, LMS system over here, and all this stuff, and then it just never quite plays well together. So too many products made by too many different companies is a recipe for disaster and going broke. So that is just something I want to say. There are times, though, where there's no one true all-in-one solution, like I'm going to describe to you right here. There's a stack of products or technology that's helpful. Number one is, we started this at the community stage, which is the email list. You need to commit to that. So I recommend, MailChimp would probably be my number one free recommendation. You can manage an email list manually, like from a spreadsheet or Google group or something like that, but make it easy on yourself and get an email list, a CRM, a customer relationship management. I think that's what it stands for. Let me know in the chat what CRM actually stands for, because I'm not entirely sure. But a email list technology, critical. Right now, I use ActiveCampaign. In my understanding, the three leaders in the paid area, which means it's cheaper the smaller your email list, but it's not necessarily free, is ActiveCampaign, Drip, or ConvertKit. And MailChimp is my go-to free option. I'm also hearing a lot of rumbles about MailerLite. But that's your CRM or your email list, email marketing tool. Next is making the decision between hosted versus self-hosted LMS. So like some people start with course creation, they end up on a hosted marketplace platform like Udemy, and then they realize very quickly that there's limited options and it's hard to compete. And then Udemy is putting downward pressure on pricing, and a lot of things they want just aren't there. Then there's other hosted LMS tools like Thinkific and Teachable, which are good. But now you have a monthly fee. Those tools are really good at kind of the video-based, chapterized version of the textbook, but they're not really extendable in the way that your own WordPress website is. So a self-hosted learning management system, online course, membership tool like Lifter LMS is completely extendable because it exists. You buy what we'll talk about in the next line here, but you basically have your own website that you own and control. It's open source, meaning if you want a custom feature that doesn't exist in a plugin or a theme or whatever, any skilled web developer could build that. There are all these, great looking themes and page builders that can bring great design to your website with pretty much unlimited options of what the thing can look like. You've got plugins and tools like Lifter LMS and all the add-ons that can make your online course, membership site, your learning management system, your coaching program, your paid community, all on a platform that you own and control. That's what self-hosted is all about. So, typically, it's not for everybody. Like if you don't want to own the platform, if you aren't really thinking about getting into results-based learning and you never want to worry about the technology and you prefer to just pay monthly, maybe a hosted LMS is the right fit for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to lean in and get that control, that ownership, and that flexibility, and in the community that exists within the WordPress ecosystem of people, products, and tools, then a self-hosted LMS like Lifter LMS is what it's all about. And you just install those things on top of your own web hosting, a domain name, and that has WordPress on it. So, we recommend for hosting, we use WP Engine. There's a lot of hosts out there people talk about, let us know in the chat what hosts you like. I mean, there's a lot of good ones out there. WP Engine is what we use. And there's a lot of hosts of different quality and, price and all this. But that's a great conversation for the Facebook group or in the chat about what hosting you like. But you just get the domain name, you get WordPress, the email. Let me save you a huge headache here. And instead of trying to host your own email accounts, I highly recommend paying $5 a month to Google for basically Gmail for business, Google Apps. And so if it's Chris at dogtraining.com, you need an email address to run your business, pay for that with Google so that you can then use Google's suite of tools. It puts you in position for using YouTube there, and as your team grows, if you ever need to move hosts, and moving emails is a huge pain. So it's one of those expenses. I'm a big fan of the bootstrapper out there, but for the email address, I highly recommend using Google Apps for that. And I also really recommend treating your business like it's like a business, your online education company, meaning the sooner you get onto a business email and kind of separate communication project to its own email, it's just going to cause less confusion down the road for people. And if you ever sell your company, it makes everything a lot easier. Then you need the money machine. And this goes back to what I was just saying about email, about respecting and treating your business with respect. It depends on where you're located and what your course is about. But a lot of times you want to have the money machine happen. So if you work it backwards, what you need to start with is a business bank account. And in the United States, I'm not going to get into a big discussion here on the difference between being a sole proprietor, an LLC, or an S corporation. But when I first started out, I started out as a sole proprietor, and I got a DBA for my media company, which was Badget Media. And then I opened a business account for Badget Media. And as a sole proprietor, at tax time, it's all being treated as just personal income, but I do have that separate business identity. That's how I started out. I've been an LLC, I've started S Corp, but it doesn't have to be complicated. But from the beginning, I do recommend having that business bank account. Before you can get a business bank account, you need to have a business. The simplest way to get a business is to do the sole proprietor thing or do the DBA, doing business as. I'm not an accountant. or a legal professional. I don't play one on the internet, but just make it part of your starting steps to get a business account. It's going to come in handy later for Stripe and PayPal and these other things. So as we work back up the money machine, I recommend opening a business account for Stripe and PayPal using your business email address, not your personal. And you need the gateway to happen to pass money through to your business bank account. So yeah, Stripe is free to set up. So is PayPal. They take approximately 3% of the transactions, how they make money. So Lift Your LMS works with Stripe, PayPal, and you can get to hundreds of other payment gateways through our WooCommerce integration. That's the money machine. Important technology piece. And the money comes through the website through our products. So you got the website, you've got the payment gateway, which ultimately money lands in your bank account. And then there's the Lift Your LMS technology, which is currently the simplest way with as few tools made by as few companies as possible to create that technology stack. But like in this list here, and I'm going to go into Lift Your LMS a little bit on the next slide and how to think about it and how to use it. But what I'm looking at here, write this down. The things on this screen are essential. The CRM, the self-hosted LMS, the web hosting, the domain name, the email, free WordPress, your money machine figured out, and Lift Your LMS. So this is the fundamental building blocks. Everything else that you hear about in the space is not necessarily essential. So I want to go on to Lift Your LMS specifically. I put this slide in here. This slide often sneaks into some of my presentations. It's kind of a joke because I get annoyed by people selling hope on the internet and make money online type stuff, where they rent a Lamborghini for a day or whatever. This is me in an actual Lamborghini in Alaska. A friend of mine who's a helicopter mechanic, this is his Lamborghini. We used to go out sometimes on rides on the 50 miles of road that's in Juneau. So I put this in here kind of as a joke, but also to go with my theme here, which is Lift Your LMS turns you into Batman. And this is kind of like me in the Batmobile, even though this actually isn't my car. But anyways, technology, like Batman was a normal human being. I'm sure most of you know, but just in case you've been living under a rock, Batman, or Bruce Wayne was his real name. He had all this like technology, like the Batmobile, and he had this guy in his basement who also was his butler, who would create all these tools to help him when he was fighting evil, other evil forces in the world, and needed to navigate like high-speed chases and fly through the air and do all these things. So Lift Your LMS turns you into Batman. I'm a big believer in not automating everything and turning everything in this whole process we're talking about into a robot that, quote, makes money while you sleep. That's not what I'm talking about at all. What we've said at Lifter from the very beginning is Lift Your LMS helps you scale the human touch with robotics. But we are not taking the human out of the driver's seat. So you're still, a human being like Bruce Wayne inside of Batman-like technology. So the stack that's inside Lift Your LMS, and this is where a lot of tools, or people end up with a software Frankenstein, is they get one tool for the LMS, something different from the e-commerce, something different for membership, something different for engagement, something different for community building, or community component, and something different for coaching. The fewest number of parts made by the fewest companies possible is what I'm recommending here. So Lifter gives you the LMS. Lifter's a learning management system, membership, sites, solution, and online course platform all in one. What makes an LMS different from an online course is It's not just locking down and selling premium content, which you could argue is what like an online course is, but a learning management system gives you all kinds of detail, like in the reporting, on how people are progressing, how are courses doing in terms of completion rates, how are certain students doing, all kinds of reporting and detail that you can look into and optimize. So it's not just locking down premium content. And it has the LMS features you need, like multimedia content, quizzing, assignments is coming. That's what the basic LMS fundamentals are all about. Lifter has the very powerful e-commerce tools and the access plans. So you can come up with literally any business model, whether you want to do one-time payments, payment plans, monthly recurring revenue, free trials, annual membership, whatever. You can do all that with the Lifter LMS e-commerce engine. Students can self-manage if they want to end up self-canceling or update their credit card. It's all included. Membership is not everybody needs to use this feature, but if you want to get into selling bundles of courses, you can do that through memberships or bundling in other non-LMS content. It's another use case for memberships. We don't necessarily advertise this the best, but Lifter LMS is a complete membership site solution. What ends up happening is a lot of people end up kind of flooding over to Lifter from various membership plugins out there, and there are some good ones. But when they realize that they can have an LMS, e-commerce, and membership all rolled up into one, that's like a game changer for a lot of people. Engagement is very important. So we have achievement badges, certificates, we have personalized emails that can roll out based on behavioral triggers that happen within the learning management system that you pre-design. And we even have text messaging tools that you can use there. And then, like I've already mentioned, the community through Lifter LMS Social Learning and the coaching through private areas is really awesome. And just like what I'm doing right now, not made by Lifter LMS, but there's that Zoom tool that we're using right now. Somebody should make a course on how to use that. But I'm using that for a webinar, but you could easily use this in coaching. Coaching, one-on-one coaching scenarios or group coaching or office hours, those types of things can go into your design of your program. So that's Lifter. The final stage these don't all go sequence in the perfect sequence, but again, the 5 hats are the expert, the instructional designer, the community builder, the technologist, and then now the final one is the entrepreneur. So again, keep it super simple. Marketing, if we started building community before we got into building content, the job of marketing gets a lot easier. If you've already got some momentum and some people interested in you that you have already gotten results for in advance of selling, pitching, offering anything paid. So really the role of the education entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur part is, I'm grossly oversimplifying it here, but it's marketing and innovation and administration. So for marketing, you need to have a strategy for, especially if you're starting at the very beginning, for getting that initial flow of students into your course. Even the best programs, like when they're brand new, you need to have a marketing strategy. That's why having an existing community is a lot easier. But I would encourage you to check out our podcast because we get into marketing a lot. But just to lay out a few strategies, and you don't have to do all of these. You just need to commit to some. And remember, if you have a course that's designed around results and these students start getting results, they're going to go share. They become your marketing evangelists. You don't have to you don't always have to pay for marketing. Great courses literally sell themselves. I'm not saying that marketing becomes completely irrelevant, but at a certain point, results literally speak for themselves, and then word of mouth which is a type of relationship marketing, is, very powerful. And if that's your main marketing, great. But you need to earn that through getting results for students and to get those first students. Marketing is just three things: inbound, outbound, and relationships. Another way to say that is content marketing, prospecting, and networking. So I recommend having at least one strategy inside each of those buckets. So content, what are you going to do? Are you going to have like a YouTube channel? Or are you going to have a podcast where you're giving people results in advance? Are you going to be a blogger and writing blog posts in your niche that are generating, leads and opt-ins and subscribers? This is attraction marketing. This is pull marketing. That's what that's why they call it inbound. The leads come to you, but you have to do something to attract those leads. Even like a webinar like this is an example of content marketing. The content I'm presenting to you right here is a free example of content marketing. The next, prospecting. It has a negative connotation, the pushy, outbound, cold call, used car lot salesman, like literally going out to people who aren't asking for it and seeing if they might be interested in your offer. This can be done well, or this can be done poorly. But there's a great TED Talk by Daniel Pink. He wrote a book called To Sell is Human. And if your course is designed really well and your audience is really well defined, the act of selling is not it's not at all about manipulation or coercing people or annoying people. It's literally about helping people. And part of that is talking to them and letting them know that you may have a solution to their problem. And doing outbound, which could be calls, it could be some kind of, literally knocking on doors. It could be cold email. Those are outbound strategies. The final one is relationships. So the word of mouth we mentioned is the most powerful, where your students start doing that for you. But let's not get the chicken before the egg or the cart before the horse. If you're just starting, word of mouth is not that powerful because you don't have successful students yet. So this is where you can do like a pilot program. Maybe you do a free pilot version or a low-cost launch to get early word of mouth. You could figure out ways to partner with other non-competing companies that share your same customer and add value in some way. That's called a joint venture. That's a relationship thing. You could build an affiliate program so that the affiliates, using those relationships. So what I recommend, just so you don't have a single point of failure, is pick at least one marketing strategy across inbound, outbound, and relationships. Again, that's content marketing, prospecting, and networking. The innovation to launch is pretty much already done from this presentation. We've talked about designing around a particular community and expertise that we have. We've created a process or a behavior change and a learning environment or journey or experience that is innovative, that creates results and heals pain in the world for your people. That is the fundamental innovation. So what I see a lot in the online education space is people are it's a saying in Texas, all hat and no cattle. So they're either all marketing with like no product, or all innovation or product and no marketing ability. There's very rarely is the balance like pretty level. So if you feel pretty solid on the marketing, maybe you should go back and revisit the community building, the instructional design, the stepping into your power as an expert leader teacher. And the final thing, which plagues all entrepreneurs, most of them, many of them, is administration. And this is extremely difficult and challenging for a bootstrap, self-funded entrepreneur with limited resources. This picture of me walking on the beach in Costa Rica, at the time, did not own a house. I wasn't paying rent anywhere. I literally left Montana with my family and moved to Costa Rica for a winter. And that was, and had very little resources. But I started building a system around, course projects, and I was bootstrapping. I was keeping everything alive, and it's all about the story you tell yourself. So that's me walking on the beach, with my kids. I was actually headed to the, came from a couple towns away, and I'd have to walk down the beach, past the coconut trees to a bar at a hotel that I was not staying at to use the internet to keep my business alive. Now, poor me, I'm not saying like poor me, but I had like no money in the bank. Everything I did save, I just paid to that videographer to come down to produce the course. And then I had to get resourceful and hire give away a piece of equity in that project to have a guy in Ireland do the video editing. So that's me being scrappy, but entrepreneur builds systems, and that administration, you can't just administer chaos. I mean, that's what it feels like a lot of times, but it's important to have some structure. So the fundamental administration I'm talking about here is those 5 hats. What systems do you have in place that make sure that equal attention is going to the expertise in instructional design, the community building, the technology stack, or the entrepreneurship business functions? Admin is really key. If you can afford to build a team or get help or get an assistant or partner with somebody, that's important. But it's really easy to get sucked into the whole online course launching kind of thing, but you got to keep the wheels on the bus in terms of running your business. You're going to have tax implications. You're going to make sure your banking is set up correctly. You're going to have refunds to process. You're going to have people reaching out to you for partnership opportunities, for looking to, do different things to, leverage your expertise for their audience. You need to have systems in place, and you can build administrative systems with people, processes, or technology. So I'm inviting you to step up and step on this rocket ship. And the Lifter LMS stack, what we're all about here, is the holistic, integrated approach to what it's required to be a successful course creator or membership site builder. The tools are designed around not just the technology need to wrap content and deliver it worldwide on the internet for a fee, but it's around becoming an expert. It's around the needs of community building. It's around the needs of that instructional design, that learning journey design, the technology pieces. I mean, there are software tools here, and also your needs as an entrepreneur. There's pieces of the software that make it easy for you to do these different functions, the 5 hats. But I'm not saying it's easy. That's why we're doing this webinar. That's why I hope you're taking away some takeaways, and I'd love to hear in the chat what if I really struck a nerve or opened up a bottleneck for you, because this is not easy, and it's hard to be 5 people at once, and especially when you're just starting out, you have blind spots across these functions. So if you're watching this and you want to get started with Lifter LMS, the first thing I would encourage you to do is to take advantage of the free core Lifter LMS plugin. We'll put a link in the chat. We are big fans of the bootstrap, self-funded entrepreneur. So we want to get you results in advance of ever having to spend $1 with Lifter LMS. And we really wanted to shake up the industry and provide a world-class learning management system for free. I hear a lot of people say things like, you know, the free Lifter LMS plugin in one of your payment gateways is like way more powerful than anything else out there. I can't believe what you guys give away for free. And we're glad to do that. We always try to give away as much as we can for free, but go check out the free core Lifter LMS plugin. And like I mentioned with the payment gateway, whether that's Stripe, PayPal, or WooCommerce, we have various add-ons that do different things. You can see all that in our store. And then we get into the bundles. We've got a Universe bundle, which bundles in all our, you know, payment stuff, email marketing stuff, basically third-party integrations, as well as design tools like our theme, which is called Launchpad, and the Lifter LMS Pro graphics pack. That's what's in the Universe bundle. The Infinity bundle includes all of that, plus some advanced features. So that's where we get into the social learning, the community piece, the private areas, the coaching piece, the advanced quizzes. So the free Lifter LMS has some automatically graded question types, but if you want to get into you know, long answer, short answer, uploads requiring manual grading, that's the advanced quizzes add-on. And we are just about to roll out the assignments add-on. So depending upon when you listen to that, that may or may not already be out. That's what makes the Infinity bundle so special. So all of our paid add-ons have a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're just ready to just go and just know that you know, you don't have to take that financial risk if it's not perfect, if it's not what you thought, or for whatever reason you're not happy, you can always get 100% of your money back in the first 30 days. We stand behind that. We do that because we want you to have that confidence that if you want to try things out and invest in us, that if you're not 100% happy, that's fine. You can get 100% of your money back. The other way to do it is with what we call the 30-day demo. That's at the top of the Lifter LMS website. There's a link, and you can get basically a temporary website for 30 days with your own logins, with the Lifter LMS Infinity Bundle stuff installed, as well as with a bunch of demonstration content. You can play around with it and you know, make the decision as you're researching if Lifter LMS is a good fit for your project or not. So that's what the 30-day demo is all about. And you can even install other plugins, try it with different themes, put all kinds of page builders and stuff on there just to flex it and make sure it's going to do what you want it to do, and work with the tools that, you know, outside of Lifter that you want to also use on your website. So that's the Lifter LMS stack. I hope you'll join us on that, on the rocket ship. And we're going to get into Q&A here now. And I'd love to chat with you. We're going to start with the Q&A, and then we're going to transition to, I'll check out the chat to see what's in there. And then if anybody wants to talk live, you know, please raise your hand in the Zoom feature and we will chat there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second and get the get the Q&A going here. Let's see. There we are. All righty. So I'm going to head to the Q&A. Thomas asks, is that how to sell the course? Sell the results first? That is a great question. Yeah, so in marketing, a lot of people talk about, like, you know, sell the benefits, don't sell the features or whatever. So yes, I think it's important to sell the results, but I think it's important to also mention your process. So what that might look like is clearly defining who your course is intended for and what their pain points are. What is the starting point and the finish point of the course, and really it's the result they're seeking that they really want. And then it's helpful to mention like your method, like, we have this great community of people just like you. We offer personalized coaching because people struggle in different ways. So it's important you can support your results with process, but I think where people fall short is they say, I have a great course on X topic, but then they fail to mention the results, that this is why we're even here fighting for this. Sell the results first and then support that with your method. So the classic elevator pitch technique, which I like to use at least as a starting point, is I help X type of people overcome this obstacle or achieve this opportunity through this method. So that's the statement when you're I find it very important when you're in the community building stage, expert stage, and instructional design stage to really get really clear on who you're serving, what are the results, and what is your secret sauce, what is your stack. Are you doing coaching, community, multimedia content? Are you doing some live events? Like what? Or are you just doing the passive course, which is fine too, but people want to know. Sometimes they undersell the stack, is what I'm saying. So thanks for the question, Thomas. If you have any other follow-up questions, please feel free to ask on that. Jenna says, this has been great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. James asks, how important is it to have a course curriculum design before trying it out? This is a fantastic question. The people I see who have the most success already have the content started, finished, or at least 80% finished. So what I mean by that, and in all those cases, they've kind of got the curriculum planned out. So what that means is, I like to say the launch of the course is not the finish line, it's the starting line. So we need to get a course out the door, get real human beings in it, going through the course, going through the learning program, getting results, and then keep improving on that over time so that our course is constantly getting better. The launch is not the finish line, it's really the starting line. So we need to get to the launch in a fairly reasonable amount of time. But then not just sit back and rest and wait for the money and the people to roll in, because it doesn't work that way. Fundamentally, I think it's helpful to, at minimum have like an outline, or at least a working outline. If I was going to go for the minimum, having a working outline and then getting into a tool like Your LMS that you can then populate the the course structure with your sections and your lessons. You may call them modules or classes or something else, but that way you're not just looking at a blank slate. Like, how do I, I'm just looking at this software with no starting point. It is true that once you get into the Lifter software, you're going to notice things about how it works so that you can, it may inform how you design your course, or how you structure your quizzes, or how you add coaching to an upsell. It's helpful because they can kind of play off each other, but at minimum, I would recommend having at least a curriculum. So if I was going to keep it super simple and basically move very fast, I would start with, a mind map like you see behind me of how I can help a particular type of person, and then structure that into kind of book outline format, come up with a coaching and community strategy, and then, get into the tool and have it, some sample lesson content done. That would kind of be the minimum. People make the same mistake too when they get into email marketing tools, like more advanced ones like ActiveCampaign, where you can do all this automation, but you should kind of know in advance like what your email lists are going to be, what kind of tags you're going to use, like what exactly do you want to automate. Because if you're going to go buy that tool, it's better to kind of have on pen and paper or whiteboard or whatever, have your automation strategy kind of, at least the beginnings of it, figure it out. I think sometimes, in the software world, we're kind of sold on the end result of how awesome the software is going to make our life. But we need to get the best results. We need to have have this stuff that's going to go in the software kind of planned out, ideally some of it created before even getting into the tool. So I hope that answers that, James. I'm going to check out the chat. It looks like Mark has a question from chat. He's interested in strategies where the primary person, the one that considered the face of the company, is not technically deep in the subject matter, but various experts are involved to help with course content. Oh, this is a great one. I mean, this goes back to exactly what I was talking about in the early slide where I was in Costa Rica. I was the publisher mindset. I wasn't, in that case, I was not the instructor or the teacher. So it's just a different strategy. So if you're going to do one online course and you're going to be the strategist or the business mind, and then there's somebody else is going to be the content creator, and maybe somebody else is going to be the coach, that is totally possible. So I just call it the publisher strategy. And that could be for one course, or it could be for multiple courses by the same person, or by multiple courses by multiple people. And you're literally creating like a catalog in the same way a book publishing company does that. But you have to start with one course. And this is totally one of those valuable things to do, which is one of the ways to solve the 5 hat problems: expert, instructional designer, community builder, technologist, entrepreneur, is to partner up. So, there's all kinds of partnerships that you can create. So, and a partnership, you can give away, sometimes it's better to give away a percentage of the project equity than to just not be able to launch the project. So if you're all marketing, limited on the innovation, it's good to partner with some innovators in a niche. Or if somebody already has this bustling community of people you want to help with, maybe you could partner with them through your affiliate program or doing some kind of joint venture. So partnership and building an industry community in your industry is very helpful. I'm happy I could talk more about that. We actually have a podcast episode about the publisher mindset. It's old, but yeah, if I have more questions on that, I'd be happy to talk about that. But the main thing is, strategically, if I wear my entrepreneur hat, I would, ideally, I don't want to give up equity unless it brings long-term value. But just like that picture of me cash-strapped walking on the beach, I would have rather hired a video editor one time in Ireland to process that 2 weeks of footage. But instead, I created a royalty agreement so they get paid ongoing based on the sales, and the same with the instructor. So literally, I did not need any money up front to make the project happen, but I'm tied to sharing it as time goes on, which is fine. Otherwise, this project would have never happened. The expert wouldn't have been as high quality. The delivery, like video, tech, audio quality, would not have been as good, and it wouldn't have been edited as well. So sometimes sharing royalties in that way, or equity, or whatever you want to call it, through partnership, can be very powerful, and also make the project a lot more fun and less overwhelming and stressful. So let me know if you have more questions on that. We had a question from Patty about integration with Infusionsoft. There's a great plugin made by a different company called WP Fusion, which integrates Lifter LMS courses and memberships and just sites in general through to Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign. We use that ourselves with WP Fusion. Drip, Entreport, Agile CRM, MailerLite. They added a bunch of new ones, but highly recommend WP Fusion if you're trying to build a bridge between Lifter LMS to a CRM that we don't have our own add-on for. Another question from Patty. Do you have to host the videos elsewhere like Vimeo? That is a great question. It comes up a lot. And video hosting for online courses, you definitely don't want to get into the video hosting business where you self-host your video. You do want to self-host your LMS and your platform, but the video at this point in time is it's much better to use something like Vimeo Pro or Wistia or Vimeo Plus, I think it's called. Mark Mays might be able to correct me if he's listening in the chat here. But people usually either do Vimeo Pro, Wistia, or they do something where they host it on Amazon S3 and then embed it on their website. So basically, like with Vimeo, you just take the link, you set the privacy settings so that it's only playable on your website. You change the settings so the player matches your brand, colors, and stuff like that. And then you just copy and paste the link of each video into the Lifter LMS lessons where you want them to display. It's really as simple as that. And that video is going to look great, play great on any device size, varying qualities of internet speeds and connections. So that's great. So that's the video question. If Patty's asking if she offers a mini course as a bonus to the main course, how does that work with Lifter LMS? That's a great question. So I would kind of need to know what you mean by email mini course, because you just said a mini course. It just depends. Like, courses can be big, they can be small. You can have a it just depends on how you structure it. So the basic Lifter LMS structure is, it could be a course that's not available for sale by itself, that only certain people can get access to, or maybe it's even hidden from your catalog or something like that. Or you just auto-enroll them in the mini course, which might only have 3 or 4 lessons in it, as opposed to your bigger 20 or 50 lesson big course. Sometimes when we talk about a mini course, I'm actually a big fan of what's known as the email mini course. So if I could advise like the generic course marketing, content marketing funnel or inbound, it would look like this. So when a course creator is really overwhelmed and they're like, I don't know what to do about marketing and I don't even know where to start with my course, I'm just super passionate and want to help these type of people, I recommend starting with 1 blog post, which gives some kind of results in advance. Once you get to 5 blog posts, then you can ask for an email address or an opt-in in exchange for an email mini course, where they would get a series of 3 to 5 emails that teach something and helps them get results in their life. At the end of that, then you could offer a pitch a free course on your website. So now you're moving them from their email inbox to your website, creating a user, taking a course, and then at the end of that, you have an opportunity for them to get into your paid course, which potentially has coaching and community. And then after that, if you want to go all the way super advanced, you can develop a membership with Lifter LMS that includes lots of courses and other benefits as well. That's the ultimate kind of upsell. And sometimes when you have that kind of marketing, people call that an ascension ladder or whatever. when you have that, the counterintuitive insight is that people don't always come in at the bottom of the funnel and work their way up. Once you've got all that built, sometimes people just like come right into the email mini course or the free course of your website, or they immediately go to your high-end offer, or maybe they stay with just your free content for a couple of years before they even buy anything from you. It just all depends. So that's, I'm happy to talk about that more though, if you want to have a discussion around the email mini course concept. And then Mark Mays mentioned that Vimeo Plus is a new tier under Pro, Vimeo Pro, which is fine for course hosting. Cool. And we've also got somebody from Japan. Thank you for joining us on the call. Now, let's see. Does anybody want to raise your hand and have a live conversation? Happy to take any questions live if anybody wants to chat and have a live conversation. Terry from Facebook also says, thank you. Been trying to figure all of this out. So you're welcome, Terry. Thanks for watching. And I hope I can add some value to you and help you get to results faster, quicker, and more painlessly. Jonathan Denwood from Facebook says that he personally feels like it's best to start with what he calls a mini course, when it goes down well, it becomes a free trial course, i.e. your main lead magnet. What do you think? Yeah, if you're in the business of teaching, having a free teaching, so basically you're giving a free sample of what you, a smaller version of the main course. It's always a great strategy. The other thing that I like to do with Lifter is there's a setting in there where you can make certain lessons what we call free, which means somebody can view that lesson content without enrolling in the course or giving you their email or buying anything. So that's kind of like that free sample marketing where you can use your one main course product, and you can make I recommend taking 10% of the best lessons and making that free. Freely available, not even an opt-in required, and that allows you to build trust, help people get results in advance, and then instead of trying to sell them, you just give curious people access to some of your content. If they like it and they trust you, and you actually get them results with your free concept or your free content, they're very likely to buy your course. Cool. Does anybody want to raise your hand and talk live? It's okay if we've got no questions or wants to talk live, but I'm going to stop the recording, and then last chance to talk live here. Just give me a second to do my closeout here. So thank you, everybody, for watching this. And if you're watching the replay, please feel free to connect with us. Come join us in the Lift Your LMS Facebook group. Check out the Lift Your LMS products. And if anybody has any questions about any of this, we're always happy to engage. And that's it for the recording. I wish you all the best on launching your first online course. When you're ready to use some powerful technology for delivering all this, I highly recommend Lift Your LMS and our wonderful community and team that is here to support you. I hope you have a great rest of your day.